Welcome to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ryan Matthews. This month, the Ohio State University's College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences is opening up the doors to the Multispecies Animal Learning Complex, otherwise known as MALC. On this episode of the podcast, we'll be joined by Dr. Graham Cochran, Associate Dean of Operations for CFAES, to talk about what this facility means for the college, for current students, and future generations. Also on this episode, we'll be joined by Brian Glynn, Director of Government Affairs at American Farm Bureau, to talk about farm programs and advocacy efforts happening in Washington, D.C. That's all coming up after this.
At Ag Credit, our loan officers take the time to understand each operation, its needs, and offer the unique financing solutions it deserves. Whether your needs include financing for equipment, livestock, inputs, farm improvements, real estate, or your home, we've got you covered. With a company vision to inspire growth in agriculture and our rural communities, our team members aren't just lenders. They take an active role in their community and are advocates for agriculture. To apply online or find the location nearest you, visit us at agcredit.net. Ag Credit, committed to agriculture, committed to you.
Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. There are a lot of exciting developments happening in 2026 for Ohio agriculture, including Ohio State's College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Science Multispecies Animal Learning Complex, or MALC. Here to talk about this soon-to-be open facility is Dr. Graham Cochran, Associate Dean of Operations for CFAES and a professor for the Agricultural Communications, Education, and Leadership Department. Dr. Cochran, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here, Ryan.
Now, before we get into all MALC, could you just kind of start talking about what are the goals and what will be available with this new facility?
Yeah, well, the new facility has been a long time in the planning. I've actually been working on it since I've been working as Associate Dean for the last 7 years. At a high level, it's about really ramping up and elevating our experiences with teaching about and modern animal agriculture on the Columbus campus with both our students and the public we engage.
That'll be a great experience. And as you mentioned, right, it's not just available for OSU students, but also those students that are K through 12 or community members. Could you talk a little bit more about what those opportunities will look like?
Sure. So, we're really excited about elevating our student experience, especially with animal sciences students in particular, but in the class lab experiences. That's a real high priority, but also some net new programming that we've not been able to do much of, which is, really engaging K-12 students with a focus on getting them interested in careers. We all know that careers in agriculture are important, but a lot of students don't get exposure to all the cool things you can do in ag. And so a chance to get exposure and hook some students, maybe get them to come to our college and then go into the workforce in our industries. So we're planning, we'll start in the fall with engaging teachers more and some K-12 programming. And then over the course of the next year or two, we'll really ramp up our level of K-12 programming. We've been doing a lot at Waterman now with our Controlled Environment Agricultural Research Complex, but this will give us a whole suite of things then to do when students come to Waterman and working with K-12 teachers.
What a fantastic opportunity, one for the workforce development pipeline, getting those students exposed to agriculture, as you were mentioning, but also, when they become Buckeyes, when they become students at Ohio State, that they're going to get such a in-depth, hands-on education. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. Now, you kind of talked about the timeline a little bit, but could you just talk us through, when do things open? Are there any upcoming projects or events that the center are going to take on, the next couple months or just throughout 2026?
Yeah. So we're cutting a ribbon the last week of January. And at that time, we'll have occupancy and use of most parts of the facility. We'll be moving animals in starting then, likely have some beef cattle and horses there towards late January. February, we'll move in dairy cows as we get the dairy up and operational. And then poultry and swine will be a little bit later in the spring as we finish up those barns and get them populated. So it'll kind of be a rolling population with the animals that we work with in the complex. We'll also have an opportunity in the spring to start bringing some select class labs out to start getting an experience there. Some of our student groups are already asking about tours and getting to get exposure and get some industry partners also out there to maybe have a meeting there and and get a tour and get some exposure. So we're ramping up. It'll be a slow opening in the spring. Planning some activities in the summer, including a judging camp that our livestock judging coach is planning. And then in the fall, it'll be more full-blown, class lab experiences for students. I will mention, just as a side note, the reason we're kind of going full in the fall is we're also doing a bunch of infrastructure improvements, including widening the road through the Waterman complex, which will enable a bus stop there in the middle of Waterman for students. So it makes it so students will be able to get to and through Waterman from the central campus, Midwest campus for class labs.
Seems like that's a good analogy, right? For the, opening to more opportunities, right? Whether it's a bus stop or it's these, different industry groups or students or even the animals coming in slowly. So I'm sure that'll all be really great to see throughout the next year as it starts happening and the facility starts to kind of get broken into.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Absolutely. Now, my last question is for those listening, and as these things start happening, where can folks go to get any updates on all things MALC?
Yeah, I would say our Waterman website is the best, and it's waterman.osu.edu. If they want to get more information, we have a little bit there now, and we'll begin, adding more information as we have it available. The current site has a construction camera that's soon going to be coming down, but we'll add information there. So that'd be a good first point of contact, and has contact information for people to call and get more information.
Dr. Graham Cochran, Associate Dean of Operations for CFAES and a professor for the ACEL department. Dr. Cochran, thanks again for joining.
You bet. Thanks, Ryan.
Farming and ranching are more than just jobs. They're a way of life, and nobody understands that better than a company that's rooted in agriculture too. We're proud to be the official insurance and financial services provider of select state farm bureaus. We're more than just an insurance company. We're a protection company, driving agricultural efforts that matter to you.
Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. While margins on the farm remain tight, advocacy efforts for modernized farm programs and a new farm bill are ongoing. Here to give us a recap of some of the areas we have seen improvement and what programs we still need is Brian Glenn, Director of Government Affairs at American Farm Bureau. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's an honor to be here with you.
Glad to hear it. Now, Brian, last year we saw some modernizations and extensions, both through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, along with the Farm Bill extension. Can you walk us through some of those big wins in those legislative packages?
Yes, and it really was a big win, I will say. So just kind of turning back time here for a little bit to May, June of 2025. We saw, of course, Republicans gain control of both chambers of Congress. President Trump starting his second term. Republicans essentially controlling politics in DC in the power position. So it became clear that reconciliation would be a process that they would be able to do to be able to advance some of President Trump's really high priorities in his domestic agenda. So, and this is similar, right, to like what Democrats did in 2022 when they passed their reconciliation package. So, of course, both sides kind of get their bite of the apple on this process. They really were able to use the One Big Beautiful Bill and this reconciliation package to address a lot of major priorities in the Farm Bureau family. However, the reconciliation process has limits on what Congress can do. Everything that they included in that reconciliation bill, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, had to have a budgetary effect. It had to affect spending in some way, shape, or form. They were not able to include just extraneous policy updates or improvements to programs that we would typically see in a full farm bill. So although they may have addressed, most of the funding part of the farm bill, I would say they weren't able to address most of the policy updates of a typical farm bill. So while we are, certainly very appreciative of congressional leaders, our Ag Committee Chairman, Chairman Thompson, Chairman Bozeman, for getting this across the finish line, there is more work to be done to get a full, comprehensive farm bill across the finish line. And we've heard different names for this, for what that is, but the name that has stuck in Washington, D.C. is Farm Bill 2.0. Referencing that Farm Bill 1.0 was achieved in the One Big Beautiful Bill, but 2.0 are a lot of those policy updates that need to be made. So as Farm Bureau, we are sharing that story that we need a comprehensive farm bill. There's a lot left to be done that's on the table, and our farmers and ranchers need those updates and that certainty.
You mentioned that there was a lot of different priority issues that got passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Especially when it comes to commodity prices, it comes to trade, research, even those, tax provisions that were set to expire last year.
Yep.
A lot of those got either, extended or they were made permanent. And, thinking about Farm Bill 2.0, just want to go a little bit deeper. Can you talk about some of those programs that will be in hopefully the
Yep.
Farm Bill 2.0, things that need to be modernized or fixed to reflect the challenges that farmers are facing today?
Yes. And I really want to hone in on that point of reflecting the challenges farmers are facing today, because these programs, when you think about it, haven't been updated since the last farm bill was done. So that we're talking 2018. And we have been asking and imploring for a full farm bill, for years. And those policy updates are important because they need to be updated to accurately reflect the challenges that farmers are currently facing. So time has passed, and a lot of these programs, while still very important, we need to ensure that they get updated with a full farm bill to make sure that they're best serving farmers and ranchers right now. And we know that the farm economy is in a bad spot. We're dealing with elevated input costs, depressed commodity prices, negative margins over the last several years. Like, cumulative losses are approaching $100 billion in the farm economy. So farmers and ranchers need a farm bill. They need these types of policy solutions that drive long-term market demand, that help support farm viability over the long term. So to get to your question, yeah, there are several titles of the Farm Bill that were left largely unaddressed. As I said, they probably did about 80% of the funding of a farm bill. They dealt with that in the One Big Beautiful Bill, but they only did about 20% of the policy updates. So a lot of those policy updates still need to be done, and these are in places like the credit title. They need to update and streamline farmer loan programs. That would be hugely important right now for farmers and ranchers who are having to deal with the farm economy and issues of accessing capital and credit. The rural development title was left largely untouched. There's a lot of important programs that need to be updated, like rural broadband programs. That's certainly very important to helping unlock and support rural communities. The research title, although there were certainly some research programs that were plussed up and invested in the One Big Beautiful Bill, there are policy updates that can be made across several different programs within the research title that will help support extension and land grant universities and whatnot. I should also say the energy title and the forestry title. Those are two that we have priorities in, important programs that need to be addressed, that are still left remaining in what needs to be included in a full farm bill. So there are certainly a lot of programs that need to be addressed in a comprehensive farm bill package. So that's the message that we've been taking to Congress and the administration, of course sharing our appreciation for getting the One Big Beautiful Bill across the finish line with significant farm program investments, but also sharing the need for folks to come to the table and get a farm bill done.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, there's still a lot on the table to get
Yeah.
accomplished. We've gotten some big wins. We've already kind of hit on that. And you talked about how, yeah, the last farm bill that was written was in 2018.
Yeah.
And that was now 8 years ago, which is
Hmm.
crazy. That's what we're coming up on. And for anyone just thinking about the past 8 years of what's gone on, right? We had the pandemic, we had a lot of
Yep.
disasters or natural disasters. We're facing a trade crisis, and you even said it. It's almost a perfect storm of
Hmm.
challenges that farmers are facing. And so, yeah, some of these wins are great, and as the year goes on, and we're starting to see some of those effects of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Hmm.
But yeah, what else is left? You mentioned kind of just these two buckets, right? There's the safety side of it, because
Yep.
from that perfect storm, a lot of farmers are operating on razor thin margins. You
Yes.
talked about
Yep.
input costs. You talked about the, you know, low crop prices, and nearly
Hmm.
record low crop prices, and all these other challenges. So making sure that the farmers are safe in that, and they're able to farm for the next year, and the next decade, but also innovation. You talked about land grant
Yep.
universities, research, how are we going to advance agriculture, and also broadband, making sure that those opportunities
Yes.
are available on the farm, and ensuring that they are not just done, but done well, and making sure that our farms, and our industry get to continue to be modernized. And that starts with a modernized or a 2.0 farm bill.
Hmm. Yes. Yep. I will say, just to tie it all together, I mean, we sent a letter in October, American Farm Bureau, at the with the support of our board, all together. It was a letter to President Trump and a letter to congressional leadership, and recognizing the downturn and the suppressed farm economy, the negative margins that folks are facing. Um, we urged President Trump and congressional leadership to act quickly, to focus on, yes, short-term solutions, short-term economic assistance to get folks to that next growing season, where a lot of that $70 billion investment in the farm safety net will kick in, like our updated ARC and PLC, updated reference prices, that really will kick in next fall, or I should say this fall, October 2026. But we also focused on like policy solutions that Congress and the administration can work together on to drive longer term farm demand, domestic demand, farm profitability, farm viability, because we know ultimately, like, we can't exist in this ad hoc assistance environment, like we have been over the last several years. We want markets. We want sound policy that helps drive that demand longer term. So in this letter, we outlined both, and certainly Farm Bill is essential to those longer term policy solutions that can get us, that can support the farm economy, drive demand in markets, and help folks not feel like they have to hold on every year and feel like they're right on the edge every year. We want to be there for our folks and make sure that they feel supported. And we called on Congress and the administration to do that. So we have been working closely with them to get this across the finish line, and Farm Bill is front and center to that.
That letter did a really good job of, as you pointed out, the short-term relief. We even saw
Hmm.
that with the Farm Bridge Assistance Program.
Yeah.
But what else needed to be done? And you talked about the narrative that's going across farm country right now is, yeah, farmers aren't wanting payments back to back to back. We want agriculture to thrive, not just survive, right? We want
Exactly. Yes.
markets, and
Yes.
that's what, farmers are asking for. And yeah, these long-term solutions. So my next question to you, along with Farm Bill, and I know you hit on
Hmm.
some of them already, are there any other big pushes when it comes to the advocacy efforts, especially working directly with congressional leadership?
Yes. Yeah. So there's certainly no shortage of priorities and things that we need to get done. I'll say that, of course, the last several weeks, and certainly this week, there's been a lot of focus on this appropriations package. We know that the CR that was passed that finally ended the historic, I think, 43-day long government shutdown. That CR took us through January 30th. So January 22nd, we're just a couple days, running up on that deadline. Appropriators have been working very diligently to get their appropriations bills together and in order. We saw the House come out with a funding package, and they're voting that on that today. So more to come. But I say all that because we have focused a lot of advocacy efforts as a Farm Bureau family to um, answer the call, have Congress answer the call of providing economic assistance that fills in the gaps that still remain after USDA's Farmer Bridge Assistance Program announcement from December. And we're certainly appreciative of that program, but it did not cover the full extent of the losses that we have seen over the last several years that farmers and ranchers are dealing with. So we have called on Congress to include that economic assistance in this funding package, but also to the point that we were discussing, policy that can drive longer term markets and longer term domestic ag commodity demand. And one of those that we always come back to that has been a priority for years is securing year-round E15 availability. And that is another policy that we have worked diligently on to help ensure and try and get that into this funding package that's due by January 30th. The work continues on both of those items. I don't have a crystal ball, of course, but all I can say is that we have, as a Farm Bureau family, really driven home in our advocacy on those two specific priorities, especially in the last several weeks. So that's where my mind immediately goes to your question about priorities and advocacy efforts. But of course, there's so many more policy solutions that we outlined in that October letter that would also bring more certainty, like ag labor fix. We saw whole milk in schools get passed and signed into law by President Trump, which was one of our priorities, and we're very, very happy to see that get across the finish line. But continuing to make sure that folks have the resources to get to the next season, that short-term assistance, and also work with leaders to deliver on those policy solutions that provide certainty, longer term certainty, which is, I know, what everyone wants, deserves, and needs.
Well, it's great to hear that American Farm Bureau is working on all cylinders, and
Yes.
especially across priority issues to get some of these across the finish line. Um, you talked about the letter, and I
Mhm.
know American Farm Bureau just held the annual meeting of voting delegates to set 2026
Yes.
priorities.
Yes. Yeah.
You also talked about, meeting with congressional leadership directly. What other ways is Farm Bureau working with Congress on these priority issues, or what is that going to look like throughout the next year?
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned our convention. It feels like it was like forever ago, but it was just last week,
It was.
where we were in sunny Anaheim. Um, and Yes, during our convention, we actually had the House and Senate Ag Committee leaders up on the stage with President Duvall, and it's kind of a unique opportunity to have both your Democrat and Republican leaders together. I think that was the first time that our Ag Committee leaders had done that in quite some time. But it was good to see them sitting together talking about the priorities of Farm Bureau and our members, farmers and ranchers across the country. And they highlighted several areas where they're working together on. One of those is a farm bill. And I think we have again continued to share the need of getting a farm bill done. And Chairman Thompson has, he had a farm bill in May of 2024 that passed through the House Ag Committee. It's for for several different reasons and hurdles, it sat there. But I know Chairman Thompson is excited to take that work up again. and get another farm bill started, largely looking at what was already passed through in a bipartisan way in the committee in 2024. So there was discussion on that, on Farm Bill, and working together across the aisle, ways that we can work together. Also, tougher conversations that will need to be had between Republicans and Democrats. But I think it's not lost on them that farmers and ranchers everywhere are deserve a new farm bill. They need a new farm bill, and we as a Farm Bureau family are sharing that message. So I think it's really it's on us and it's our job to keep up that pressure on Congress to get a farm bill done, to get economic assistance across the finish line, year-round E15. We are calling on our congressional leaders, and we will continue to call on our congressional leaders and the administration to meet the moment and help support American farmers.
Brian Glenn, Director of Government Affairs at American Farm Bureau. Thanks again for joining, Brian.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It was a pleasure.
Find previous podcasts at ohiofarmbureau.org and search podcasts.